Hello, this is Tony Heller from RealClimateScience.com. CBS News quotes Michael Mann as saying, "This is a scientific consensus. There's about as much scientific consensus about human-caused climate change as there is about gravity." The press keeps telling us that all scientists agree with them about catastrophic climate change, but for some reason they always talk to the same half-dozen people. Michael Mann is one of the worst and most corrupt academics, but the press loves him because he tells them what they want to hear. His only accomplishment as a scientist is to erase and rewrite the last 1,200 years of Earth's history. The press never wanted to talk to my good friend Dr. Bill Gray from Colorado State University, who was the world's leading tropical meteorologist and the person who invented modern hurricane forecasting. Even leading climate alarmist Jeff Masters acknowledged that Bill Gray was a towering figure in hurricane science. The press refused to talk to him because he refuted their climate change junk science. The press never talks to the more than 30,000 scientists who signed the global warming petition project. One of the signatories was Edward Teller, the father of the American hydrogen bomb. Unlike Michael Mann, Edward Teller accomplished a tremendous amount during his lifetime. The petition reads, "There is no convincing scientific evidence that human release of carbon dioxide, methane, or other greenhouse gases is causing or will in the foreseeable future cause catastrophic heating of the Earth's atmosphere and disruption of the Earth's climate. Moreover, there is substantial scientific evidence that increases in atmospheric carbon dioxide produce many beneficial effects upon the natural plant and animal environments of the Earth." One of the signatories was Freeman Dyson, who was considered the greatest physicist of the 21st century. Even the New York Times recognized his brilliance. The press doesn't want to talk to the people with the right stuff at NASA who took us to the moon. 49 astronauts and scientists from the Apollo program wrote, "We believe the claims by NASA that man-made carbon dioxide is having a catastrophic impact on climate change are not substantiated." The press prefers to get their climate information from people who didn't complete high school and from other non-scientists like Barack Obama. In 1974, Joel Charney, professor of meteorology at MIT, said, "I don't think we can predict climate now, and I wouldn't trust anyone who said he could. Anyone who says he can tell you more than a few days ahead of time what the weather is going to be is practicing necromancy, or talking to the dead." Here's a story of climate prediction failure which the press is not going to report. Arctic sea ice extent is finishing up the year the highest since 2003. If you search for that on Google News, you're not going to find this very important story. They keep telling us that polar bears are dying because the ice is disappearing. This is what the experts have been telling us for the past 14 years. 2008, Arctic polar cap may disappear this summer. National Geographic, 2008, North Pole may be ice-free for the first time this summer. On the advice of experts, during the summer of 2008, British swimmer Lewis Pugh tried to kayak to the North Pole. He didn't make it very far. Frightening projection for Arctic melt. The Arctic Ocean could be free of ice in summer as soon as 2010 or 2015. National Snow and Ice Data Center, 2007. The Arctic is screaming. NASA, Arctic ice free by 2012. National Geographic, Arctic ice free by 2012. BBC News, Arctic ice free by 2013. Nobel laureate Al Gore, polar ice cap may disappear by summer 2014. Sierra Club, Arctic sea ice will vanish in 2013. U.S. Navy, Arctic ice free before 2013. Cambridge University, ice free Arctic by 2015 heralds methane catastrophe. And here's the same stories from 70 years ago. And yet here we are with the highest Arctic sea ice extent since 2003. Climate alarmists in the press have been telling us for years how important Arctic sea ice is. They should be ecstatic about this news, but instead they're completely silent. They only talk to professional fraudsters like Michael Mann who tell them what they want to hear. The term scientific consensus has nothing to do with science. Michael Crichton wrote, "I regard consensus science as an extremely pernicious development that ought to be stopped cold in its tracks. Historically, the claim of consensus has been the first refuge of scoundrels. It's a way to avoid debate by claiming that the matter is already settled. Whenever you hear the consensus of scientists agrees on something or other, reach for your wallet because you're being had. Let's be clear, the work of science has nothing whatever to do with consensus. Consensus is the business of politics. Science, on the contrary, requires only one investigator who happens to be right, which means that he or she has results that are verifiable by reference to the real world. In science, consensus is irrelevant. What is relevant is reproducible results. The greatest scientists in history are great precisely because they broke with the consensus. There's no such thing as consensus science. If it's consensus, it isn't science. If it's science, it isn't consensus. Period. Michael Mann isn't a legitimate scientist, which is why he talks about scientific consensus so much. And the press is just as corrupt as he is, which is why Michael Mann is their favorite academic. Toto has been pulling back the curtain on these scoundrels for the past 14 years. You can visit him, Curie, and Caesar on the web at realclimatescience.com.